It's like episode 64, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep, 64. I've just checked.
Linux OTC. Welcome to episode 64. I'm Bill.
We
Somebody is
having a stare
somebody.
down again? We having a stare down again? I imagine.
Oh,
Yes,
you
he's
didn't
having
hear
a
me?
stare down. Yes.
Let's start over.
Did you not hear me?
No.
And I can hear you.
Oh, yeah,
now.
I said I'm Eric. I said it right after you said I'm Bill.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
We didn't catch that.
It
Should we
didn't
start
come
again?
across.
Okay.
Yeah, let's start again. Sorry, everybody. Give me a couple seconds. Linux OTC. Welcome to episode 64. I'm Bill.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Majid.
Yeah, 64.
You know, I'm eagerly awaiting 6-7. Sorry.
Oh, God.
I know we did that all last time, but you know.
That'll be an easy one to name, won't it?
Yes, it will be. It will be.
So I just bought a new battery backup or a travel battery charger thing, and somebody's review was the screen on it that shows the battery level was 6.7. And
No.
that was it. No comment. Just the picture of the battery was 6.7. I'm like,
Were they aware of
It's
the
gone
piss they
too
were
far.
taking?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, Bill, have you finally sorted out your machines? That's
well,
not a euphemism.
yeah, I built two machines. One with parts that I bought, and then the other one with parts that were left over and other stuff I had kind of laying around. And the reason I built the second one was because of a problem I ran into with the first one, and I'll get into that. But the first one, I started with, and most of this stuff is used. I don't really buy a lot of new stuff except for storage and things like that. And the video card is new. I started with an Asus Tough Gaming. I'm not a gamer. Tough Gaming X570 Plus, which is a pretty beefy motherboard. It's capable of 128 gig of RAM, and I put a rather beefy i7 5700X, which is the one that's unlocked and you can overclock it. The problem was this motherboard had been sitting in the shop apparently since before the last BIOS upgrade, which incidentally I needed in order to run that CPU.
Which meant you needed Windows.
It wouldn't even post.
Okay.
If you try to put a CPU in it that it doesn't support yet, it won't even post. It would not even go to the Asus thing. So, after consulting AI on the problem,
Yeah.
that was the answer that I landed on, and it ended up being correct. So I ordered a really, really old Ryzen 3 just to slap it in there. I mean, it was,
Are you a Prime cousin? Are you a Prime member?
yes, but I got this
What you
off.
could have done. I was going to say what you could have done is bought a chip from them, used it, updated your BIOS, then sent it back.
Well, I could do that with the eBay one too, but I mean, the price was cheap enough to where I could justify holding on to it just in case,
Okay.
because it's a fairly nice. I mean, yeah, it's old, but it's a Ryzen 3. Well, yeah, I put that in there, and sure enough, AI was right. It posted. And then I thought, okay, now I gotta put Windows on it, right? Well, no. Asus has a utility built right into the BIOS where you can just download the BIOS update on another computer.
Ooh, okay.
Put it on a FAT32 formatted USB stick, and it updates right there from that utility on the BIOS.
Nice.
So no Windows needed. That was a treat. And then I put the 5700X back in it, and
So have we actually got to the nub of what was causing the problem before?
no,
we-
what I've decided was that machine that I was using was just a very consumer grade HP TP01-2000, and I mean, it's not even ATX. It's not even a proper ATX motherboard. You can't take this motherboard out and put it into an ATX case because it's a proprietary motherboard design where it's got it doesn't have a conventional layout like an ATX motherboard does, where you've got this here, and then you could bolt it in. It will only work in the case that it's in, and apparently the motherboard, the BIOS has a list of hardware that it will support, and apparently on machines like that list is very narrow. That was the reason why I could never.
Right, okay.
I could never get. Well, but at the same time, this is hardware that was working on it. That video card that I sent Joe, I used that video card for what, 2.5 years, never had a problem, and then I did a BIOS update. It was like 6 versions behind when I updated it, and that's when I started.
What it was then. Maybe
Well,
that's
yeah,
what it was.
I mean, it could have been, but I'm not going to play this game because, when I went looking for solutions to the problem last week, the week before, I saw that there was yet another BIOS. I've never seen a machine get as many BIOS upgrades as this thing has had throughout. I mean, and it's only it's a 2002 model machine, and it's had at least 6 or 7 BIOS updates. I mean, come on.
Well, maybe somebody's trying to justify their engineering position by making out
I
these random
guess.
BIOS updates. Do you know what I mean?
It's just not.
so-
it's not the kind of machine for somebody like me that wants to put other.
True,
type
but
of-
then again, your point is true that for a couple of years, it was fine.
yeah,
See, and this is the thing about computers, which does annoy one of the quite a few things, which is that sometimes you can go through everything and be systematic and look at all the different things, and you can diagnose the problem. But there are so many times when you've done everything and it's like, I have no idea why this won't work.
Yeah.
Now, I at least have the excuse of being a noob, right? And I at least can kind of say, okay, well, I don't even know what I don't know, so maybe there is something that I should have done which I've not done. But sometimes it just
That doesn't really go away either.
I mean,
and
the
it doesn't
truth
go
is-
away. And it's the same on whichever operating system you're on. It's the same on whatever machine you use. You will always, at some point, come across a situation where you're like, I do not understand why this is not working. I've done everything.
And sometimes
according-
it's just because the cards are stacked against you, and that's just what I decided. The explanation I decided to go with, and I pulled all the guts out of it. Put Windows 11 back on it, stuck the original RAM back in it, because I had Corsair Vengeance RAM in it. Just put it back the way it was, put Windows 11 back on it, slid it under my desk, and now it's sitting doing fuck all now until somebody wants it.
And that's the thing, you see. The fact that, you can do everything that you can think of, and still you have no idea why it won't work in the way that you want it to.
But there's no such thing as a absolutism when it comes to troubleshooting, right? I mean, you have best practices, you have knowledge and skill, right? And you have those things brought to bear. And at the end of the day, one of two things happens. One is the things that make the most sense to you as to what the root cause is aren't true. And then the second is you've spent way too much time.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to is there is a certain limit of time that it makes sense. I mean, if it's just you and you're dicking around and you want to solve the problem, great. Spend the next 6 months doing it if you want. Like if you really care that much to debug it down to like the nth degree. But most people are going to take it to a certain level and then they're going to say, okay, I'm either going to wipe the whole system, I'm going to start replacing pieces, part by part. And they're just going to hopefully go about it by a methodical approach. Now, a regular consumer is going to just go to Best Buy or somewhere, Walmart, and just buy a new computer because they're like, I'm just done with this thing. It's not working. So that's, there is no such thing as like every problem has a solution, right? I mean, there are just things that can happen that are unique enough that haven't been accounted for in the code, or there's a hardware fault. Hardware faults can do the weirdest things, man. Like shit that doesn't even relate to the thing that's broken will present, and you're like, but that doesn't even make sense. Like if the memory, if there's a problem, it just, and at some point you just have to say either I need a new machine or I have to start ripping out parts, because there's just no logical answer above that. So the problem is if
you're right. You're 100% right. And I think it's that thing that is what keeps it going. The annoyance of, but this should be fine. It should be fine. I don't want to necessarily have to spend money. And I think that annoyance is what it becomes your white whale, doesn't it? You turn into kind of
I think
Ahab
that's
and Moby Dick.
in my case, I did want to, because I knew the whole time I'm using this thing. You know what? This thing is not making me happy. There are hard limitations to this machine that I did not take into account when I first purchased it, and didn't know, because I was just getting started into podcasting, I was in the beginnings of the understanding of what I needed out of this machine. And as time went on, I started to build, this list of things that I wanted, and I knew it was beyond that machine anyway. So it was kind of the excuse I needed. Like, well, I want to fix the problems I'm having with this machine, but I also want to build something that is going to be a little bit more future proof, that's actually well enough overpowered to where, and has a good balance of hardware to where I know I'm going to be able to do with it what I need to do for years down the road, And
I think
just,
I think a lot of our computing journeys often don't start with the end result in mind, if you know what I
no,
mean.
yeah,
So
you're
like,
right.
so like for example, you buy. I mean, I've definitely done this. You see a good deal, you buy it, you think this is great, and then you realize that, well, what can I use it for? Well, I can put it in my bag and make it my work laptop, as an example, and then you realize it weighs 3 kilos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is a large number of pounds for you people.
I know kilos, because
Or,
that's how cocaine comes in kilos.
or for example,
think.
like I'm fully
Thank you for that,
expecting this.
Rin.
Yeah, random fact of the day. Yeah.
Random felonious thought of the day.
Well, it's because the rest of the world measures in metric, and so even the Americans at a certain point are like,
That's right.
we're just gonna,
Yep. We have to meet in the middle somewhere.
yeah, exactly.
Let's figure out
but
a way to throw in a taking the piss out of the Americans here, real.
But mate, you completely walked into that. You started this. I wasn't even going to say anything, but but yeah, like I'm fully aware that, for example, that this podcasting box that I've got, it was something I bought in a rush because I needed something and to start off with, Mintcast and whatever a couple of years ago, and I'm fully aware that at some point I'm going to have to get something which is actually suited for podcasting rather than this kind of hacker day, thing that I've got. I mean, it's not a bad machine at all, but and a huge amount of thought didn't go into buying it as a specific, podcasting audio editing device. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's true with loads of devices, isn't it? Whether it's tablets or laptops or phones or wherever it might be. Often you buy them and then you find the use for them afterwards. And then, I mean, I've tried to be better with that, and I've tried to be a bit more focused on what is that I need this piece of technology to do, and then buy something appropriate. But of course, I'm a stupid nerd as well, and I end up buying things which I thought were useful for something, and they're not useful at all. Latest case in point being the Snapdragon X Elite ARM laptop which I bought about 18 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, whatever. Time is this flat circle.
It is.
Yeah, and thinking that this would be a great, work laptop, great battery life, and all that. And yes, it is. All of that is entirely true, except it's all on Windows, and I can't get a stable version of Linux working that to the extent that I could use it as a work laptop, and then it
I
just
was
becomes a very
surprised that you had.
expensive.
I was interested in that thing too, until you told me of the problems you were having getting Linux to work on it. I
Yeah.
figured there'd be something, even if it was just Armbian or something like that. There'd be.
Yeah, I mean, there are generic images around. Like as I said, there's an Ubuntu image. There's even 2510, and then there's a Fedora image as well. But and I think my problem, no, not my problem. I think I got slightly taken in by when they were launched. Qualcomm made a big deal about that they were going to upstream code for Linux. In a way that most manufacturers don't. Like you've got CES going on now, Computer Electronics Show. There isn't a huge amount of discussion by hardware vendors about Linux support generally. I didn't hear. I mean, I've heard loads of stuff from Intel, but I've not heard them talking about how they've got first in class or something Linux support. But Qualcomm did when they first released those chips. And they talked about, and I even remember seeing YouTube videos of, Debian working on the prototype machines. So I had this real hope that this would be the future, as it were. And maybe if I kept hanging on to it, maybe it would have been, but it was just turning into a very expensive paperweight because I wasn't able to use it for the things that I wanted to use it for. So anyway, so I've gone back to x86 and I've bought the in one sense, it's probably not that much different a machine in the sense of it's a Lenovo Yoga, but it's a proper Yoga, as in it does turn into a tablet. It does have a pen with it, all that sort of things. You can write and everything. Put it in tent mode, all that sort of stuff. It's got a lot more ports. That Snapdragon one had basically two USB-Cs. Well, maybe was it three? Two on one side, one on the other side, and that was it. This has, it's got a HDMI, it's got a USB-A, it's got a USB-C, it's got a headphone jack, and it's still the same kind of panel, it's still the same keyboard and stuff like that. So, it's I seem like I think I got on a good deal because I've just looked back on the website, and it's gone back up in price again. Not massively. I mean, apparently it was originally MSRP was about £1,100. They were selling it off in the Boxing Day sale or January sales or whatever for 700, which is what I got it for. Nice. Apparently, and now it's gone back up to 850.
Yeah, the Dells are like that right now too. They're off quite a bit. I just looked at the Dell 14 Plus and it was like 350 or 400 off of a pretty beefy system, but they're limiting memory and everything's soldered now. Everything's on the board.
Yeah. That's the one thing. Yeah, you have to kind of like, okay, the configuration you get is the one that you're gonna have to live with. And so, and I think if this device had 16 gigs of RAM soldered on, I wouldn't have gone for it. I was like, no. Yeah. I know that I need probably more than 16, but if I want to have it, I need to future-proof it a little bit. If I'm spending a significant amount of dime on it, and so, the SKU that they were selling was 24 gig, and I thought, yeah, that's good enough. That'll give me enough performance.
It's a little more, yeah. So there's a little wiggle room there. I think the best compromise there is when they have the base amount soldered on, but then you have an expansion slot where you can add a little extra. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, so. I mean, I've seen a couple of devices with that. I've seen that definitely with the SSDs. Even Microsoft, I think, on some of the Surfaces, they had like, you can swap out SSDs or put in a second SSD into a slot or something like that.
Well, M.2 has made that a lot easier than a full 2.5 or whatever, or 3.5. So anyway, that does it's. I guess it comes down to what's in it for the manufacturer, how much of this product is designed simply for like the most basic end user who really, there's no sense in building in a lot of those things because none of the people who buy them ever actually expand the memory, ever actually open it up, ever actually do
Mm.
anything with it. So it is additional cost for no benefit versus something that's maybe a little more aligned with, the corporate sphere where, yeah, it's more likely that somebody's going to want an upgrade or something like that. So
So
I don't begrudge them entirely. I kind of
yeah,
get it. If you're buying the low end, you got to kind of expect that. But
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was interesting actually. I was watching a because now because it's the year of the Linux desktop. Obviously, there's loads of
Obviously.
YouTube and there's loads of YouTube videos about people switching to Linux and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, there was one of the creators who was talking about how this $120 ThinkPad is better than my framework or whatever. And then she started going into it, and it was like, this is the way the computers were. Everything was modular. You took things out, you put things back in. And the reason they were beloved of business in those days was that it was much easier and cheaper for companies to just upgrade laptops at that point when you've got something easy to upgrade like a ThinkPad. But now it's easier, cheaper, whatever you want to say, to just buy new machines. So that's part of the reason why things have become soldered on and all that sort of stuff, which I thought was quite interesting. So now, having now gone back to x86, and I need to think about which distro to put on it. And there was a couple of people said that it is a relatively new processor. This what is it called again? It's one of these one of these stupid flipping corporate, alphabet soup of words and numbers that have no meaning. What is it? Okay, it's AMD Ryzen
Ryzen AI.
365. Yeah, 365 A. No, sorry, 350 AI7 octa core, and so now I thought myself that's a relatively new processor. So actually, maybe I need to go for a bit more of the rolling release, a bit more of the bleeding edge distro than my usual, which would have been Mint or Ubuntu or something like that. Um, but at the same time, these things are bleeding edge for a reason. They're prone to breaking, and this is a production machine.
It
So
depends on what your expectation out of a system is because as I'm getting older, it's almost month by month now that my tolerance for dealing with any kind of troubleshooting or just
you're just a
fiddling with.
cranky old man. That's what it is. You're
Oh
just a
man,
cranky.
it's bad. It's bad. Well, and the other thing is that I don't use my computer like I did. Like this literally sitting here right now in front of this computer is now become an unusual thing. Like I don't sit in front of my laptop, I don't sit in front of my desktop. I use my tablet and I use my phone 85% of the time. Like I only really need to sit in front of a computer to do something that is, computer intensive or computing
Mm.
intensive versus because that's the beauty of like my tablet. I can use a remote client and with the on-screen keyboard and the controls, I can pretty much do everything I need to do to, again, archiving this DVD, doing anything with the media on the system. I'm not like typing, so I'm not worried about that. Really just, wiggling some knobs and dials, and that's all.
This is that Dell Latitude, that Surface clone one. Yeah, am I right? Or is it
Yeah,
a different
yeah.
one?
Well, there's that. So, which I haven't really even used that very much because it's like I don't even need that much computing power. I'm
Okay.
literally just using my Samsung, tablet.
Oh,
So,
okay. All right.
yeah. But anyway, so like that's the thing. Like your expectation out of a computer now. So for me, because I'm not using it regularly, what I want is to sit down the times that I do want to use it, open it up, and just have the thing be bulletproof or as close
Mm,
to it as I can versus the old days of like, oh, there's an update. Oh, there's a problem. Oh, there's something to do that's computer centric that I get to sit here and be a nerd about. Like those days are so far behind me that, I'm really looking at more of like, not an appliance necessarily, but this is where, the atomic distros sort of come into play where it's like, if
mm,
I can just have an image from my system where I don't have to worry about any of the base layer, right? I don't have to worry about the OS. I don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And it's really just the programs I want on top of it that need to be kept up to date or whatever. Like that's my ideal solution now. Like not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, certainly not 20 years ago, but that's what it is now. And I think I'm more aligned with the average normie and just end user than I ever have been. And I can kind of now sympathize with a lot of the things they would complain about to me, where I'd be like, I don't understand why this is a problem.
So
Whereas
which atomic or immutable, whatever, or composable, whatever we're calling them these days, distro is one
I
that
feel
you
like
would go for?
Fedora has the head start here, with all of the stuff they've done with Bluefin and Bazzite and like all of that. So probably would be Bluefin
Hmm.
if I just had to make a choice right now.
Hmm. So I've been
I would
so
prefer.
I've used Bluefin and I've used Aurora, both of which immutable ones. I haven't gone down the more. I haven't tried out like Fedora Silverblue, which I think is the oldest one. I think, well, as in it's been around for the longest time. I think. I'm still kind of surprised that there isn't an immutable Ubuntu flavor yet. Actually.
I think there's the core, and they're trying really hard to focus on snaps
Hmm.
as the overlay instead of Flatpak, which of
Hmm.
course makes sense for canonical. So I
Hmm.
think if you see a true like atomic that's like widespread for them, it's going to be the core atomic base and then snap on top of that. So I mean, to the point where they've really, what, in the last few releases, they've told their um, the flavors to not ship with Flatpak enabled, right? Because they
Yeah,
just
I
don't
mean
want it to be that easy.
that was the last couple of years that's been the case. I think was it what
Yeah.
3 years ago, something like that, 3 4 years ago.
I don't think it's been that long. I think it's been maybe a year and a half. The last two releases, maybe three releases. I mean, I know my judge of time now is not really reliable anymore, but still, yeah. I think that's sort of though where I really see myself going is just I'm not in an active career. I don't need a lot of like hardcore custom computing. I really just need commodity computing, and I need it to work reliably because I don't have the appetite to sit here and play around with it. Not that I don't know how to do it or can't do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So, so that's really where I think personally I am, and where, maybe that'll change. I mean, maybe I'll start doing something more that requires, sitting in front of a computer. Maybe I'll start writing more. There's all kinds of reasons why I might want to do that. But even in those situations, it's going to be more about, do I like the keyboard? Is the screen big
Mm,
enough? It's less about the underpinnings of the system anymore for
mm.
me. So
I mean, what's hardware support like on these atomics? Because I would have assumed that because I mean they have yeah. I'm
it's
trying
pretty
to think
good. I
how.
mean, Fedora's pretty solid. I mean, simply because it's Fedora.
Mhm.
But I agree with you. I think I would probably, in a perfect world, be more likely to use something that was Ubuntu based, which would then be Debian based. So I mean, it's probably just because that's where my comfort level is. Even though I
Yeah,
guess technically on an immutable system, if I'm using an Ubuntu base with some sort of flat packs on top of it, that
yeah,
see, it really comes down to, is that base going to have the majority of what I need built in already?
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
don't want to have to layer a bunch of stuff on
yeah,
top of it.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I
this is
think that's what
so.
that's where Fedora and the Bluefin, Bazzite, like all of those have a head start because they've been through several iterations already where they may have started with a generic sort of lackluster base, but have realized that, like, Bluefin's kind of more of a developer sort of flavor. So they've got more of the developer tools baked right in, and more of the stuff that people like, they know their audience more,
Yeah,
better now than they did 2 years ago. So
yeah. I mean, one of the things that I figured out when I was using Bluefin on one of the test laptops, and I realized that you need to do a little bit of homework before and find out that all the software that you want to use is available as a Flatpak. You don't want to. I found there was one or two random things that weren't.
yeah.
And so that was my only limiting factor, but I kind of go with you. I like the idea of it. It's very as I said, it's much more difficult to break and have this kind of, like we were talking about earlier, random error type thing that you're just kind of going, I don't understand why this isn't happening.
Right. And for anyone who's using Android, you're already sort of been in that world for a long time. And, you know, again, everything on Android, unless it's built in, is going to be an app. And if there isn't an app for it, then I mean, I think we already sort of live with that a little bit because there will be apps for Apple and iOS that aren't on Android, or if they are, they're not as full. If they don't have the same feature set, that is a very narrow gap now. It used to be much wider. 5 years ago, it would be common for my cousins or someone who's using Apple, iPhone, and they would have, oh, look at this app, or look at this, the way this app looks on an iPhone versus how it runs on an Android. And I think that's far different now. It's I just saw a video the other day about a girl who was trying Android, and she's like, I can't believe there's no clipboard on iPhone. Like, I'm using Android now, and it has this little thing in the keyboard. I copy something, and then when I want to go back to it, it doesn't just have to be the last thing I copy. I can go in, and there's actually a clipboard that shows me everything I've copied in the last however long. And especially on a Samsung device, they do a better job than the Gboard keyboard. But anyway, so I don't think there's that divide between Android and Apple like there used to be in terms of like the apps and the functionality. But still, you're using a device where the core is locked down. And today, as as someone who liked to play with ROMs back in the day, it's hard now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it used to be trivial on most Android devices, most of them, to just have the bootloader unlocked and do whatever you want on it. And now it's gotten, much, much more difficult. And really the return on your investment for that, unless you're just someone who wants the security and doesn't want to be using the G apps and all that stuff, it's just not even really worth it.
Yeah, no,
think.
it's not. No, I mean,
So-
it's more of an ideological thing now,
Yeah.
or a repurpose thing. You've got maybe an old device which is not out of support, but there's a lineage ROM or something like that. Those are the reasons. Because in the past, the reason for all the ROMs was because early Android wasn't brilliant, and on top of that, it had skins which weren't good either. I mean, anybody remember TouchWiz? And LG's one. I mean, HTC's one was, I still think, the best. Sense, I quite liked that. But now, it's 15 years, 16 years, flipping heck, 16 years since my first smartphone. Bloody hell! It's what, almost 20 years since the first iPhone, right? So now it's. Things are good, and plus the compute power is just so much more massive that if nothing else, you can just brute force things to be good. Who cares if your code is good or not? If you've just got enough computing power, you'll be able to.
Well, that was that Moore's law thing where, yeah, you could keep an old phone, and then my daughter just ran into this by having an OnePlus 5T, where the phone itself was a solid device, but having 64 gigs of storage just isn't enough anymore.
Yeah.
But by how much Android uses, and then if you've got just even a handful of a handful of apps, I mean, and especially if you have something really heavy, like she likes CapCut, so it's video based, and that thing just eats so much memory. But yeah, so even if you don't want to upgrade, I feel like at some point you're forced to, because the apps just get bigger and hungrier, and the expectation is, sure, they've got 4 gigs, 6 gigs, 8 gigs of memory on these phones, where that used to be, geez, if you had 2, it was like, wow, 2 gigs.
Yeah. I still remember the first phones which had 1 gig, and it was like a big accomplishment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you were saying you had some kind of video cardy problems as well, like Bill.
Oh, yeah. Well, interestingly, so you made me think to check back. I think maybe it was software related, not hardware. When I was explaining it earlier, so what made me think it might be related to Bill was I have some legally obtained DVDs that I was trying to archive, and using Handbrake.
Linux ISOs, yeah?
What's that?
Linux ISOs, yeah?
Oh, well, Linux ISO. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing to do
Viewable
with
Linux
media.
ISOs.
Right. Nothing to do with the media or entertainment industry in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I was ripping them, and I noticed this one was a very long, large ISO. And yeah, and it was very garbled. So I thought, oh, maybe the settings are wrong. So I tried it again. Same thing. I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Like this, I do this all the time. So try again. And this time I look at every setting and I'm like, there's so many different, bells and whistles in Handbrake in terms of all the settings.
Mm.
And okay, that still didn't work. Tried one of the stock ones. That didn't work. I'm like, okay, this is crazy. What am I doing here? So then I got a different disc, tried that one, same result. I'm like, okay, that now something's seriously wrong. And the result was that it was either a green screen, like Bill was seeing, or something that was just very like it would do that like smoosh overlay where there's a still image and it sort of wipes to the side. You know what I mean? And then the audio was wrong, and so I'm just thinking, okay, this looks a lot like a hardware problem, right? Except I wasn't using NVENC, so I'm thinking, well, maybe it's memory related, or it just seemed like maybe it was going to turn into one of those problems. So anyway, so what I realized was I have two versions of Handbrake on here. One is the flat pack one, which is the one I was using, and it has a much newer version of Handbrake. But then I also have the one from the repo, which is like 1.5 or something. So it's very far behind. Many versions back.
Is this on Cosmic? Is it or Mint?
No, this is on Mint, and I'm still on 21.2.
Okay.
So I'm pretty far back.
Okay.
Yeah, what am I here? If only it was that easy. Oh, it's 21.3. So I'm pretty far behind. But it's still supported for a few more years, so I figured I'll just be lazy. Anyway, so the result was I just used the old version of Handbrake, and it worked. So it must be something related to the latest version of Handbrake, or something related in that vein, where the old version seemed to work fine and the new version is not.
I feel like there's some fuckery going on with the Mesa project or something that's making weird shit happen. I don't know, because that's along next to the problems I was having that were equally as spurious in just, being able to explain what was causing it. And you just change the machine and it fixes everything. That kind of thing. I don't know. And
this kind of goes back to the, if you live in a world where you have one version of the software available and there's no real way to troubleshoot that, like that would then become like, what would I have done at this point if I hadn't occurred to me to like try a different version of Handbrake? I might have done what you did, which is like get frustrated enough to say, and I've done this historically way too many times, which is to just nuke and pave, right? And that's kind of when you're the type of person who doesn't mind reinstalling everything, that's probably too easy of a solution, is to just be like, I don't want to deal with it and just completely blow it up. But the reason that I haven't upgraded this past 21.3 is the same fear that would have kept me from nuking and paving it, which is I've just got years worth of stuff on there and I just don't want to deal with redoing it. I mean, but the problem,
cloning. I was going to say cloning. Clonezilla. I used that. I had a rare win in the last episode where I talked about how we used Clonezilla. It's a very rare win.
Yeah. No, Clonezilla is great. I have had it not work a couple times, which was disappointing. So I've used other products, but Clonezilla is pretty cool. There are plenty of offshoots of that I think work a little better. I can't remember them off the top of my head right now, but
there's this one called Fox Clone, which I remember coming up in the Discord a couple of times, because I think the guy who makes it is a Mint contributor as well.
Yeah,
something like
that. I have used Fox Clone and it has worked pretty well. Clonezilla can be a little confusing because if you don't understand the concepts of like the host and the destination, like there's just too many potential ways I think that you can do something you didn't intend to do. So there are better presentations of that, that framework. But beyond that, you're right. And I think that's a good way to think of it, is like, if you do a bare metal backup, the worst that could happen is that you're restoring it at some point. But the problem with that still is, if you do that backup and then you do the upgrade and it doesn't work exactly right, do you then just go back to what you, because going back doesn't really fix the problem. You're going forward for a reason. It's not like a frivolous reason or a spurious reason to like move forward. There's a new version, you want to upgrade to it. Okay, you've upgraded and it hasn't worked properly. That probably just means it's not going to work properly. So it's still an impasse. It doesn't really like, you know what I mean? So I'm probably at that point, if I try to do the upgrade and even with a snapshot, if it doesn't work, I'm still at the same position of probably having to nuke and pave.
Do you keep your home partition separate, or like a lot of people do, so that the OS is on one partition and the home and all the data's on another one?
Not so home. So what I do on home is, rather than have a separate partition, is I do links to those folders. So like all of the normal folders in your home directory, the video, pictures and all that, those are just shortcuts to a different disk. So
so they're physically somewhere else. Okay.
Correct. And the nice part about
that's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
There's a real elegant way of doing that with ButterFS, where you can make a separate drive and then create sub-volumes for like your download, your music, your videos, and then mount those sub-volumes to those directories in the home directory. The good thing about that is you don't have to declare with sub-volumes. They behave like separate volumes, but you don't have to declare their size. So you don't have to like set a specific partition size and then mount that partition to each one of those directories. You just create the sub-volume and mount it, and it just uses the space it needs. That's kind of an elegant solution to that.
And then you add that into snapshotting as your backup, and you've got a really powerful setup to. And if I was doing something that was more of like workstation centric, then I probably would do that. The truth is that most of the stuff that's on that desktop, while I'm hesitant to break any of it because it would cause hours worth of rebuilding it, it truly isn't like either anything that's sensitive or anything that is irreplaceable. I have all of the data, because the server processes are stored there, but all the data is actually on my NAS. It's on a different system completely. So, and that's all being backed up. So really, it's just the data itself is safe. It's just the processes, the server processes and stuff that are hosting it and serving it that are sort of, I don't know. And I guess I probably should be more diligent about backing them up. But the truth is that when I started in 25, 30 years ago doing this stuff, hardware was fragile. It was prone to breaking often. So it wasn't so much like if it was going to break, it was a question of when it was
going to break. Yeah.
Whereas now, the truth is, for most people, and it doesn't mean that it can't happen or that it won't happen, it's just not likely to happen. Not like it used to be. And especially not for storage. Storage used to be, when it was spinning Rust, those damn disks would die for no reason. Like, you left work today, your computer was fine, you shut it off, and when you come in the next morning, 12 hours later, you turn it on and the disk is just dead. And you're like, what? So that just doesn't really happen with solid state. I mean, it can, of course, there can be.
I mean, I have had that actually. I've had one SSD fail, and I've had an NVMe.
But did you have any kind of any sort of? Was it a spectacular immediate failure, or did you have some sort of inkling that maybe something was going on?
Okay, so I can't remember everything about the SSD. What happened? Because all I remember is that it happened twice, and I remember thinking to myself, twice in a year, this is a bit weird. The NVMe was actually in my son's laptop, and he just kind of came down one day saying, I can't get this thing to boot. I'm like, what do you mean? It won't even switch on. And this, that, and that. So I did, it was a Windows machine, but I did a bit of, going around and this, that, and that's when I realized that basically the NVMe had gone, and put another NVMe in, and it was fine. So that was the cause. Which again, so I think you're right that things are a lot better than they were. at the end of the day, something that if you make something, there's always a chance of some kind of problems occurring, some errors occurring, things like that. And plus, we're driving these things a lot harder, I think, as well. Compared to before, you could argue. I mean,
I think still again the mechanics of not spinning something at either 5,000, 7,200,
oh yeah, I mean
10,000
definitely. I mean,
RPMs.
obviously it's much
You know,
better. Obviously it's much better. That's. I'm not actually trying to make any equivalence of SSDs to spinning Rust, but I'm just saying that everything has a failure rate. It just might be a
right.
lot less.
Well, and I think the other thing is that the QC QA processes have gotten so good, and the cost of loss when it comes to manufacturing is costly enough now because of what they how they make these things, that they've gotten very good at you know being able to filter out any of the like the manufacturing processes and the wafers themselves and the chips themselves, and then anything that comes through that also is tested so rigorously that by time the manufacturer of the PCs and whatever the technology gets those chips and components, I mean, you still have ones that will fail just based on the laws of, physics and
Yeah,
electronics. Like capacitors are always going to fail at some
yeah.
point or things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So there's always a failure rate. It's just you're right, but it is much less common than. And yeah, people could probably go through their entire computing lives without having a massive fail. While hard drives, yeah, you're right. I mean, I've only had, my NAS stroke server for what 2 years or whatever. I've already had a couple of hard drives go because they're spinning
yeah,
Rust, and Seagate just refunded me and sent me new ones.
yeah.
The one thing I did. It's interesting you bring up backups actually, because I had, having said that, I had a great win with Clonezilla. So, as I've probably mentioned before, I look after the resident doctors, and one of the resident doctors, he's coming near the end of his training. He's got about 2 years left, maybe 18 months if he gets his ass going, and so there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be done. Things have to go through to the General Medical Council, and so that he gets his what we call a certificate of completion of training, which would be the equivalent of kind of a license to be an attending, I suppose, in America. And so I was going through all the stuff with him and this, that, and the other, and he was saying, "Oh man, there's just so much paperwork and this, that." And I went, "Look, mate, I know it's a lot of paperwork, but you're at least doing it online. There are online portals and forms, and you can screenshot things and upload it. We had to, rest of us had to use good old paper and print things out and stuff like this. I'm not that old, but I was still old enough." And I thought so I was telling him, "Look, I remember when I did my application for the CCT, it was like a 10-page document, and I didn't have to do a huge amount. It was a lot of it was cut and paste I could get from other places, but it was still a ball ache." And I wanted to show him, and I have my files backed up. I have, it's on a separate machine. It's on a cloud storage backup as well. All that sort of stuff. Only to find that those files that are in that folder, which is about 8 years worth of files from when I was training, I don't know what fault has happened with the cloud server, but it has just saved the names and not the actual data. So when I look in there, I can see all these files, but they're all 0 bytes. And I'm like, oh my God. And
Which is
then,
worse, not having the files or having 0 byte files?
well, I
It's
mean,
like it's making
just,
fun of you.
Yeah, it's like
Deleted
teasing
your
you.
shit, fucker.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about
Yeah,
it?
exactly. It's exactly. And then I was like, oh crap. And so luckily I had made not a recent backup. There was an old backup on an old hard drive which I had from 2021 or something, which still had it properly there. So I then kind of, okay, thank God, at least these exist. Now, is it a massive, would my world have collapsed? No, these were old files. They weren't going to be coming up again. I've been a consultant tending for over 10 years now. I'm not going to need any of this stuff again. But just that, and it's that fact, as you say, the name, it's not like it was an empty folder. It's like, oh yeah, here are all the things, press it, oh, 0 bytes. Oh, this file is not recognized. And it's like, I have no idea when this even happened. Because when do you normally look at these old files? You know, it's not common, is it? And I flipping out, man. I had this kind of, how can someone like me who is anal to the extreme about his backup still end up in this situation? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
It just makes me
because
laugh.
this is why, and I've seen this at a lot of places. It's even been at places that I've worked at or worked for, that you can do all the backups you want in perpetuity. If you don't do testing and restoring them,
Yes.
then they're worthless. You know,
They don't
and
exist.
I remember one of my first tasks as a little IT peon was to go through the DAT tapes, and you know, on my my server, and you know, put in a restore and have it run, and it would do this job to like go through, and it didn't actually restore the set, but it would just verify that it could restore them all. And that's not enough, because that's like an intermediary. You can build that into like the process, but then to actually once a month go through and restore your NetWare, because that's what we were using, NetWare at the time, NetWare server. And yeah, I mean, it was like hours and hours and hours, because those tapes are so slow. But yeah, and there were times where it told you that backup was good, and it was not good, you know, because the bits were wrong, and you know, and
So
so
how would you suggest someone but kind of someone like me, how would I keep testing and making
hire an
sure?
assistant.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Copilot, get AI to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. The truth is, if you can automate it, that's the only way, or come close to automating it is the only way that you're going to know for sure, on a routine basis, like on an ongoing basis. But the truth is, if you just can't got into a rhythm, like every 6 months, every year, whenever you felt comfortable, just literally try to see if you can pull data off of it, or try to do a restore. The problem with the restore, obviously, is it's gonna, if it's a full disk restore, or even enough of a you know, far-reaching backup, it's going to want to restore over top of too much new data, right? Which is not a good thing. So you generally have to restore the set somewhere else and then do a comparison. It's a pain in the ass, and that's why a lot of places don't do it, because to just say we back things up is enough to meet the requirements of a contract, or of some IT managers, you know, list of things that need to be done. Very few times is a contract specific enough to say, not only do you have to be backing things up, but to verify backups as well. There's sort of this implied, you know, aspect of it, where it's like, of course you're going to do due diligence and make sure, but the truth is that not everybody does it. So, yep, backups are and that's where you start getting into a backup isn't a real backup until it's backed up, and then that one needs to be, you know, there needs to be 4 copies of things. So, but again, to Leo's point, who has been antagonizing us in the comments this entire time.
Oh, has he? I haven't. Oh, yeah, the guy who was too busy to join us, but he has enough time to kind of sit and listen and watch and throw.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
he's listening, I'm sure. So, anyway, he's right to some degree. Data has got to become ephemeral, right? We are holding on to far too much stuff. Like, and this is me having started my technological life in my late 20s, right? So someone who's lived their entire life, like my daughter, if the expectation is she's able to keep every bit of data that she's either produced, saved, stored in some way throughout her entire existence, and not only have that data be readily available at a moment's notice, but then, you know, to be able to store it, and like, how is that sustainable, right? And how is that like? And you start to think, okay, well, we've already kind of cordoned things off and said, well, we want photos to be something that are backed up and kept and made available. Maybe some of our documents, maybe there's certain things that are important, but at the end of the day, there's so much shit in my downloads folder from 15 years ago still. When I first started using a computer, I remember I downloaded a bunch of sound effects. I don't know why. I was 22 years old. Who the hell knows what I was thinking back then? But like, it's a bunch of different cartoon sound effects and clips from movies that I liked at the time. And like, it's all, but it's just there. And part of me is nostalgic enough to say, well, I don't want to throw it away. But then it's like, well, okay, I've been storing that shit for 25 years now. Like, do I just keep storing it forever? And then buy a bigger NAS, and like that's the solution, is to just keep more is better, and bigger is better? Or do I take a hard look and say, well, I don't want to, here's a better analogy. Do I keep paying Google for Google Photos to just keep adding more storage because I'm too lazy to go in and delete all of the stupid videos that my daughter made of her shoes when she was 3? You know what I mean? But that takes time to do. Google does not give you any easy way to do that, because why would they?
Yeah.
And so is it worth just paying the fee, or are you going to go back and do the work to clean up data? And I contend that most people, it's just like, you remember how phones used to be? When you'd get to a new phone, you'd have to take it in, and the better setups would transfer all of your data. But if you went between brands, or heaven forbid, between an iPhone and an Android, like, you'd only be able to take little bits of data, and then you just lose the rest of it. So, and I think rather than just being okay with like losing that data, cloud services have made us accustomed to being able to just keep shit forever. Yeah. Even if I'm never look at these photos, I have to have them, right?
Yeah, no, I understand, because I know we've talked about this, before, and how so many of the photos that we take are basically redundant, and things like that. And I completely understand. What I do want to not question, but okay, data is ephemeral. It's not important. What does that actually mean? What does it actually mean to not be worried about backing stuff up? Are you saying that, whatever's out there is out there, and if it gets deleted, meh? Well, I mean, there might be times when you need that stuff.
I think there are some things that are necessary and important. Think about your life in terms of paper, and then transition that to a digital sense, where you have to have a birth certificate, you have to have like those pieces of documentation that are critical, your passport, blah, blah, blah. And any documents related to your house or your car, or your, there are certain things that as an adult, you have to have that documentation. You have to keep that. Then you probably want to have something to do with your job, and like the pay stubs, or the, or your health insurance, or your or your, so you're going to have a certain subset of data that is not ephemeral, that needs to exist and needs to be secure enough that it's accessible and available whenever you need it. Right. But then beyond that, I think, I've told my daughter this a bunch of times, where it's like, when you were, of me as a child, there's probably less than, let's say, my entire youth, 100 pictures, right? Think about that. I mean, that's true. That's objectively true.
Yeah.
And there's probably 100 pictures of her in the first 2 days she was born, that she was alive. And since then, in the 13 years she's been alive, there's probably, I know there are tens of thousands of pictures, because if they're not our pictures, our families have taken pictures, or her, friends have taken pictures, and like there's this proliferation. And when I go back and I look at Google Photos, yes, it's kind of interesting and neat to look at her at different stages, or to remember an occasion or something like that. But the fact that as a society, every time we go somewhere, to a concert, to any kind of thing, we have to be doing this the whole time. Who gives a shit that you went to that concert? I don't need to see your terrible video.
Man's here again.
You know what I mean? Like, none of that is important. And if you never watch it, then who cares? Like, why does it even exist? And I think that's what you call into question of, like, we've got data centers that are holding all of this supposedly interesting or important data that nobody really cares or wants. It's just because they have this compulsion to collect it, you know?
It's digital hoarding, isn't it?
Well, and it has a shelf life too, because if you bring into account something like social media, where there is a sort of ongoing existence of your online persona, and you're adding to that with video and media of some type, there's a shelf life to that, right? I mean, how many people are going to go back outside of like an employer or a stalker to somebody who's like somebody's 5-year-old data? You know what I mean? Like maybe there's a few reasons for that, but it's vanishingly small compared to on Instagram and day to day, and like, oh, I went to had this dinner. Like, are you going to care that you had that dinner, 2 months from now, let alone 20 years? Like, so yeah. So I think that's really, and also the tenet that these services are by and large or technically free, right?
Oh yeah,
Is
it's because
that
you're
money?
the product, isn't it? Yeah, because
Well, it is, except that if that is being funded by venture capital or by money that exists now, and I worry about this for legitimate things. Like I think things like YouTube or the Internet Archive, like those are very important cultural things. Like think of all the shit that's on YouTube. Like every commercial you ever saw when you were a kid, or every cartoon, or every. Last night I was sitting watching videos of Sega Master System, the Ninja, and the
Oh,
Ghostbusters game,
brilliant!
Wow.
and like Road
That's my YouTube
Rash.
rabbit hole for tonight. Sorted then.
Well, and is that important? I don't know. It's amazing to me that it's on there, and that I can go back and relive that and see it and be like, oh God, I remember playing this for hours and hours. And that's a dumb thing. Whereas, well, maybe a television show that there was a cultural moment, like let's just say, like, and this is stupid, but like there was a Johnny Carson Tonight Show episode that like was interesting for some reason, like a personality or someone who's was important was there and said something important. Like, where else are you gonna find that? Where? There's not that doesn't exist anywhere except on somebody's home VHS tape that they took the time to upload to YouTube. And that now becomes like this important cultural resource of like that data exists on YouTube. YouTube is a for-profit corporation without any sort of a mandate for holding that data in perpetuity. They have a bad month. What happens if YouTube disappears? Now, does it matter for all the influencer garbage and all of the like more than half of the shit that's on there that's probably garbage AI by now? Like,
Yeah.
no, of course not. But there is a lot of stuff that is there that is very, I would say, irreplaceable.
No, that's very true.
So
That's very true. How's you been uncharacteristically quiet?
he's doing something else.
Oh yeah, he's doing something else. Yeah, maybe he's talking to his real friends.
Setting
on
up all the other
3FT.
shows.
Yeah.
No, I mean the problem with building a new machine and then being away from home all week is that I don't have any of the stuff set up on time to get going on the shows. So
But it doesn't matter because you run Arch, don't you? And so everything's obviously so easy to sort
no,
out.
this machine, no, this machine is Mint and Mint only.
Really? Shall I annoy you? Shall I annoy you now?
Go ahead with it.
I actually listened to the last couple of OTCs where you were busting his balls about that, and Bill was very clear about that machine always having Mint on it.
I don't know why people get that twisted every time.
No, because well, I mean, I didn't even realize that you ran Arch. I mean, I had no idea about this. I mean, it was a shock.
Keeps
to
forgetting
me.
I run Arch.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shock to me. 6 to 7 times a day, I forget.
The funny thing is, though, when I do I have put Arch. I'll be honest. I had Arch on this machine. Well, not this machine, but the other one, for about a week one time. But I ended up putting cinnamon on it and setting it up exactly the way I do when, and the applications that I use in Flatpak on Mint, I was using on Flatpak on Arch too. So it got to the point where, I had a specific reason why I was using Arch, and it had more to do with an updated kernel than it did anything else. So really nowadays, the value you get from something like Arch is just not what it once was. With flat pack and stuff like it. With some things.
Yeah. So
Obviously.
how I was going to know you was by saying that I'm now running Kubuntu on my on what was the Mint box. So the story behind this is that after having done Distro Hoppers Digest and Dale talking a lot about Ultramarine and how it was like a Mint to Fedora. Like how Mint is to Ubuntu, it is to Fedora with codecs and this and that and the other. And I thought, well, you know what? It's been a while since I've distro hopped on a big machine, on a actual production machine, because Mint had been on this box for a couple of years, contrary to whatever you think, Hauser.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, and then I put it on and I really enjoyed it. And then I realized actually what I was enjoying was not my Ultramarine or Fedora. It was KDE.
Oh,
I like
yeah.
KDE. It's been a while since I'd used KDE on this. And I thought, actually, but then then I found some other random bugs, which I think are something to do with the firewall. And so like things like local send and KDE Connect wouldn't work. I just probably need to change some settings or whatever. But then I thought, okay, no, I'm not going to go down this Ultramarine route, but I do want KDE. If Mint did a KDE version like they used to, I would love to. I mean, and I've tried it before. Was it a Ferrin, which was kind of Mint with KDE, but not really, because it's actually Ubuntu server with KDE. But anyway,
I keep wanting to do a thing where I get a hold of a just regular ISO. I want to try this at a virtual machine first and nuke Cinnamon off of it and all of its gubbins, and then just install Kubuntu-desktop. I think is the package you need.
So I've done something similar, but not with KDE. I did it with GNOME, and I actually managed to have a Mint with with the with GNOME. I can't remember, a couple of years ago this was.
So you do that, and then you get the backport PPA for Kubuntu, so that you can get the up-to-date KDE in Plasma, which is a thing.
Okay, so again, now you have sorted out tomorrow's rabbit hole.
Because that was something I used to...
Miss, he made me do it.
I mean, and at that point, you essentially have, in my opinion, don't at me, you've got KDE Neon. When you take Kubuntu and you put the backport PPA on it, basically.
So if you're doing that, keep in mind that you can also do, instead of just GNOME, which is going to be Ubuntu GNOME, right? You can do vanilla GNOME desktop, and that's just going to be the base, which may be a better fit for Mint. Just thinking.
Does Pop OS have a KDE spin?
No. Pop. See, and it's interesting you bring that up, because I'm in a bit of a impasse right now with Pop, because I told Dale that maybe I would do a Distro Hoppers Digest with you guys on Cosmic, but I've been playing with Cosmic and like trying to use it in anger and realizing that it's not GNOME, and I'm okay with that for most of it because I do kind of like the aesthetic. I kind of like some of the things about it, but I also feel like, because this is sort of like V1, what's this going to be in 2 years' time? Yeah. If it gains any kind of a real traction and market share, like what will this become? And also, what will it be like on other distros? This Fedora spin and things like that, and the inevitable Ubuntu Cosmic, and so. Even though technically it's on an Ubuntu base, which does kind of make it, but still, I don't know. Like, I like GNOME. I do. I mean, I'm not an apologist.
I like GNOME as well.
I just like it.
Yeah.
And
on a laptop or touchscreen device or anything like that, GNOME is hands down the best. It just is.
And listen, it's like driving a car that you like. I mean, it's just the type of thing where you just know where the controls are. Like I know I can reach over and turn the heater on if I want, or
So is that
where
the trouble you were having with Cosmic is that your brain was
yeah.
expecting
Yeah,
GNOME
Well,
and
here's what it really
exactly
came.
had that. I exactly had that exact issue. I remember because I tried when the beta came out. I tried that, and in my head it was this is GNOME, but but it wasn't. And so I was expecting
Right.
things to work like GNOME, but actually it's its own
Here's
thing.
here's here's what I ran into. So it was, and again, this is where I'm saying maybe a couple years goes by and it becomes something that's more appealing. Is I use a lot of GNOME not a lot, but I use like GNOME extensions to do things to make it a certain way. I use a clipboard extension. I use, the some of the things that GNOME has not provided by choice or by default. So I've chosen to add them back in. That is a very robust and sort of mature space, those extensions.
Mm.
And the ones that I use are ones that have been in production or in development for a very long time. You know what I mean? Like they're not like just little. And what I got was this. My sense was that the ones that are available for Cosmic right now are not very robust. They are not well thought out. There, of course, is like a weather one. There's a clipboard one. There's a system monitor one. You know what I
It's
mean? Like
new,
all of
isn't
this
it?
sort.
I mean, it's new, isn't it? At the end
Well,
of the day, it's
it
just
is.
had a. No, I'm just saying. I mean, I agree with you. I'm saying that that's just a function of the fact that
so
it's
is it a
new.
good
You know.
idea to give it about a year before like really
That's what I'm
Mm,
thinking.
yeah.
yeah.
Because the truth is now I'm sort of so to get back to what I originally why I brought this up because Pop was GNOME with some really killer extensions. Now I'm forced to either it's 22.04 base, right? The previous version of Pop OS. And do I just keep using that for as long as I can? Because I really like it. It's what suits me best out of everything I've tried. I just like Pop OS with GNOME and their extensions. Or do I move to something else and then consider Cosmic at another date? Because I'm not a distro hopper anymore, the prospect of redoing my entire laptop to something new, like I'm thinking, well, if I don't have to, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So
Yeah.
Pop on here right now until they say I can't use it anymore and it's not supported. I'm kind of inclined to just keep using it the way it is. And
You've got another
then,
year because it's an Ubuntu LTS, isn't it? So you've got till
well, that's
27.
27, right? So, and that's the same of my desktop as well with 21.3. Mint 21.3 is the same thing because it's also based on 22.04.
So how is it that you find that? Because the one thing I didn't understand about Cosmic, Pop OS, and all this was the Cosmic desktop seems to be available on other distros. And sometimes for a while, I think there's a Fedora spin with Cosmic, there's a Kashi spin with Cosmic, and yet the first version 1.0 has only just come out. How does that kind of marry up?
Well, one, I think it's because of the development behind it. System 76 is a legit Linux-based business, right? They've been a supporter in the community for a very long time. People know them, and whoever they got, I don't know them intimately, but the team that they got to build Cosmic obviously knew what they were doing, right? I mean, they put for as a first effort, as a freshman effort, you know what I mean? Come on, like that. It's pretty hardcore to come out of the box with like a desktop environment that functions and isn't just like a mess, right, to begin with. And then, so now you've got this stable base that's maybe not feature complete technically, but it's a framework. And they said in no uncertain terms, they've sort of considered it that it's sort of a malleable framework that they can now, because of the way it was developed, do anything, and that not only them, but someone else could take it as a base and do something interesting with it. So I think Cosmic is really just the beginning of something that could be pretty monumental. I mean, and this is a huge statement, but it is possible in my mind, considering how well designed and developed it was from my layman's perspective, that in 5 years' time, or maybe a little bit longer, I don't know, that it becomes big enough that it is like the Linux desktop. That's possible, right? It is a possibility, even with the incumbent, GNOME and KDE players in the market, and then all of the others as well.
Yeah.
Cosmic,
Although we are getting a bit of a cull of the others, we do seem to be kind of moving because.
well, look at Mate. Look at
Yeah.
Linux, Ubuntu Mate. Couldn't you believe that they didn't have a release?
Yeah.
That's
I know.
shocking to me. And I know it's a lot because Martin Wimpress isn't there, but still, like, I never thought I'd see the day, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty, because they had a
But then
robust.
have you used Mate recently?
I've never. I moved away from GNOME 2 and that whole philosophy, like, when it died. Like, that's very much to me a hangers-on sort of thing, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean it in like a, you got that
Matter
old
of
car
fact,
that you're never gonna sell, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
because I always talk about how I got into Linux after GNOME 3 and Unity came out, and so
Right.
I never had any time with GNOME
Right.
2.
I mean,
And then when if ever I would use Mint Mate, it would always be on like low end hardware, this, that, and the other. Anyway, recently I've been trying to convert, and I think I've almost done it actually. Convert my son to Linux, and he one of the things that he was complaining about on his old Windows laptop was how laggy it was. So I said, you know what, this is a decent machine. We can actually put a lighter weight desktop, and it should be fine. It's not nice. It really feels like you're playing with a computer that's 10 years old or 15 years old. I'm not going to say it's as bad as, it's like you're using Windows XP or something like that, but it definitely feels old and crusty. And this is Mint Mate, not even Ubuntu Mate, which is, even more gnomified, I suppose, in that sense. Mint Mate at least has a little bit more of the other Mint Cinnamon aesthetic, that kind of thing. And interestingly, I very quickly, after having realized this, and I thought, okay, well, if he sees like this kind of crappy desktop, he's not going to go for it. I then I quickly did a nuke and pave and put Cinnamon on it, and now he's like, I quite like this Linux thing. It works really well. Yeah. So there you go, Bill. Before you hate on me, I have someone else using Mint, Cinnamon in the house. Yeah, there you go.
That's the choice you make when you don't want to have to do any IT work for them afterwards. Throw them on
and
Mint.
Look, I would argue, yep, I'm right there with you. If you're going to do it, give them Mint, because 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the right choice.
Yeah, it'll be supported long enough to where you don't have to screw around with it, So anyway, that's the show, kids. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Drop us a line, show@linuxotc.org. Let us know what you think. You can hit us up on Discord, and we have a Mastodon as well. Links to all those on the website. Be back in 2 weeks. Until then, I'm Bill.
Eric.
And I'm the other guy.
The other guy.
Not quite, buddy.
See you, folks. Thanks, everybody in the live stream.
One of you.
Well,
there's 5.
All 2.
Yeah.